Today's Patreon shoutout goes to Z. Atraxa up against Uranus with the background Street Urchin, and we are on the draw. We've got Mana Vault in hand, which often helps us cheat out our commander. Vampiric Tutor goes for some ramp, I think. So we'll go Polluted Delta for an untapped land. Noteworthy, our opponent's got down a Yavimaya, so we can tap down our fetches for green while that stays in play. We'll take a scrub land here so that we've got white mana. And there we see the Uranus on turn 1. We'll grab ourselves something with the Vamp Tutor. I think that can just be the Farseek for us. And then we can have multiple pieces of colours going into the Painful Truths. Otherwise it would have been something like a Sol Ring or a Mana Crypt. Anyway, draw into the Farseek this turn. If we can't get down our commander pretty much straight away, then I don't want to have the Mana Vault just sat there. We could have gone for 3 visits or something, had the land come in untapped, and then play the Mana Vault, and like I said, just have it sit there. Maybe top deck into a land next turn and play our commander. Grab the Esper, Raffine's Tower, because we do have a couple of means of making everything into a forest. So that fixes our colours quite nicely. Like I said, likely going for Painful Truths next turn, might slow my opponent down with a Lignify. Don't have too many. I think this might be the only tribal card in the list. I wanted to try out tribal and make sure that it works. It should work with Atraxa, but it's not listed. So I just wanted to make sure it works, but couldn't justify shoving a lot of tribal things in the deck just for that. Our opponent has got down Expedition Map and has 4 lands in play by the end of turn 3. Alright, so there's a Delvin's Veto for us. Yeah, I think if they're going to be ramping so far ahead of us so quickly, then it might actually be time for getting rid of this thing with a Lignify. So we'll do that. Still not going to play out the Mana Vault. We are going pretty slow here, but I'm hoping that we've slowed our opponent down enough to not have to worry about them for a short while now. Obviously they're in green, so they could get rid of a Lignify. Playing out the background, and it's noteworthy that the background does say sacrifice another creature. They can't sacrifice their commander here in order to replay it. So we see Eco Wellspring, they can sacrifice that to draw a card. And then we see a Scrapwork Mutt, and they decided to discard the Jeweled Amulet to that, I think, so 3 cards in hand at the moment. Alright, and there's a Generous Gift, so plenty of removal here. We just go for the Painful Truths because we do want to be making lands, and we seem to be struggling on that so far. So 3 colours, 3 life, and we draw 3 cards. Alright, and there is a Marsh Flats for us. We can grab something with Mystical Tutor if we want to. Could get into a land next turn, drop the Mana Vault and hit our opponent with Atraxa. Or have Atraxa hit play, I mean. Yeah, we'll just play through and see what our opponent does. Might go for the Mystical Tutor instead, because there's not much point in us going for Atraxa while we've got a grip full of stuff. Green Sun Zenith, where X is 3. Might be Raminap or something like that. No, it is a Reclamation Sage, so they're going after the Lignify. Yeah, can't go Heroic Intervention, unfortunately. We can still get rid of their commander, we've got plenty of removal. Could maybe Mystical Tutor for a board wipe. Cracking the Expedition Map. Alright, and it's a Strip Mine that they're grabbing. So, yep, going after our Triome. I think we definitely want to, yeah, look at a Toxic Deluge here at this point. If our opponent's going to be abusing Strip Mine, then we kind of have to. Swinging in at us, bringing back the Strip Mine. And I have no doubt they're just going to use it again. Yep. So, being punished for going too slow here. Mystical Tutor into Toxic Deluge is going to have to be off the back of a Mana Vault. And even then our opponent replays the commander. But hopefully their Strip Mine is stuck in the bin for a while now. They drop a Mishra's Bauble. We draw into the Toxic Deluge, so pay green mana for the Mana Vault. And it's 3 mana, or 3 life into the Toxic Deluge. And we're just hoping for a land off the top, really. We could survive another Strip Mine thanks to Heroic Intervention, but yeah, we want to be keeping our opponent's commander off the board, really, so we can't abuse that Strip Mine. We see a Conduit of Worlds, so yeah, this is us done. Good to see that Atraxa isn't unbeatable, though. It's really feared by people. A lot of people are quitting to it on turn 0, but yeah, it's not unbeatable, as we're seeing here. All you have to do is strip mine all your opponent's lands away. Okay, a Field of the Dead we couldn't be further away from, but we'll play it anyway. I mean, they've got us in a lock here, there's nothing we can do, so yeah, might as well just scoop it up at this point, and let's go gain to my opponent. We will play another one. Atraxa up against Elesh Norn, so yeah, Atraxa can be switched off here, unfortunately. We've got Ramp, Song of the Dryads can switch off the Elesh Norn, so we'll try that. We are on the play, so start with the Bant Tricycle land. Draw into Lightning Greaves. We're definitely going for the 3 visits on turn 2 here. Lightning Greaves for our opponents, so yeah, we'll want to see the back of that before the Elesh Norn comes into play. So there is a Beast Within. Could just go for Beast Within onto the Lightning Greaves, I suppose. I'm not against getting down a Lightning Greaves of our own here. Even if it does just sit there for a few turns, it looks like it's going to be a while before we get Atraxa down. Our opponent was going to play something then, and then decided against it, so I'm thinking that it might be a Generous Gift or something. We can test them on a Generous Gift, because we just drew into Oko. So get this into play, and we'll just make a food token. I'm not going to turn their artifact into an elk, because it'll just hit Oko straight away. Obviously we don't have any blockers here. Okay, and our opponent doesn't like that one. Plenty of ways for white to get rid of Planeswalkers, so yeah, anyway. Up against Thassa Deep Dwelling this time, should be able to draw 3 with the Painful Truths easily enough. Probably on turn 2 actually, so definitely keep that. We're on the draw as well. Draw into Prismatic Ending, which is one of our sorcery pieces of removal, so shocking the Overgrown Tomb. And play ourselves a Birds of Paradise. Then we see a Watcher for tomorrow, and we see a Field of the Dead, so plenty of colourless mana here, unfortunately. Shocking the Godless Shrine, and then we'll put 3 different colours of mana into our commander, or into the Painful Truths even. So that means that we draw 3 from that. That puts us on 8 cards. Ravenous Chupacabra maybe next turn, so that we can get rid of this thing before it makes too much card advantage. Don't know if we need the Ancient Tomb now, although we could go Ancient Tomb, Mana Vault, Chupacabra next turn. So I'll risk getting rid of the Tundra. Our opponent hits us for 2 with the Hideaway card. And just holding up 2 mana, so missing a land drop there, unfortunately. There's a Chrome Mox for us. So that's Ancient Tomb into the Mana Vault. And we could go in for our commander here, but we've got a pretty full hand, so I think we still go for the Chupacabra. I imagine they'll want this to stay in play, so if they've got counter magic, we might be encouraging them to use it here. They do get the card from Watcher for tomorrow. That might be a land for them. And if they don't do anything here, we'll just play the Atraxa, and if they counter it, then so be it. A Cloud of Fairies comes down for free, because they untap the lands. And there's a Sensei's Top, so likely going to spin that to try and get into a land, might even draw into one. And they do draw with Sensei's Top, and there is an island for them finally. We know they're not drawing into an island next turn though, unless they want to put 2 mana into Sensei's Top again. Okay, so Anguished Unmaking for us. Play out the Verdant Catacombs, we'll get ourselves into a piece of green and blue mana, so Tropical Island here. And now I think we're fine to play the Atraxa. And Atraxa does enter play, so likely going to get a lot of card advantage here. There is a Reclamation Sage or a Gilded Drake. We'll take the Gilded Drake, because we can't blow up their commander anyway. And then Instants, it is a mana drain only. Oko is the only Planeswalker. We'll take a Scalding Tarn for the land, because that can start triggering Field of the Dead soon, hopefully. And Utopia Sprawl is an enchantment. And all of those go into our hands, so play out the Chrome Mox, and we can exile something with that. It can be a Generous Gift, because I'd rather have exile than destruction. Prismatic Ending is exile, as is Anguished Unmaking. And then we can't play the Utopia Sprawl, unfortunately, so yeah, we're just passing at that. Swing in with the Ravenous Chupacabra first, and we'll get rid of the Utopia Sprawl. A Trinket Mage from our opponent likely goes after a Sol Ring. No, they went for Mana Crypt, and they play the Mana Crypt. So there we see the Sensei's Divining Top again, and I dare say that they'll try and make a land here. Well, they spun the top, but they're not all that eager to tap it down here, so pretty unlucky that they've shuffled their library and still don't have a land on top maybe. Okay, now going for the card draw. Okay, and they did have an island on top, so maybe just planning out their next few turns. Okay, so we draw into another counterspell, 1 damage from the Mana Vault, and I think we want to go for exiling the Mana Crypt, and we don't have to put anything into X on here because the mana value of Mana Crypt is obviously 0. So successfully getting rid of that, we'll go for Oko as well, and that can take the Cloud of Fairies out of the air. Our opponent can obviously flicker the Cloud of Fairies and turn it back into a Cloud of Fairies, but we want to be attacking him for Atraxa as much as possible here. So we can hold up the Anguished Unmaking and the Mana Drain if we play the Scalding Tarn. So let that floating mana go, and we'll deal the first 7 points to our opponent. If our opponent does go for the Thassa here, then we're likely going for, I think I'll just go for Counterspell, because if they've got a counter for the counter, then I'd rather it was this one that they counter as opposed to the Mana Drain. So yeah, there's Thassa. We'll get some blue mana. That is an Underground Sea. Make double blue and go for the Counterspell. It'll have to be 3 counterspells, but they're in blue, so plenty of room in the deck for those. Don't have it in hand, unfortunately, so I'll just decide to scoop, yeah. Couple more attacks from Atraxa and we've got them. And we've got multiple answers to the Thassa in the Counterspell and the Anguished Unmaking as well. Next turn, drawing into Teferi's Protection. And yeah, Demonic Tutor into the Teleportation Circle or some means of flicker for Atraxa, assuming that we don't get them, is our play there. Up against Breya this time, and we've got a means of green mana for the Utopia Sprawl into Risen Reef on turn 2. Not as fast as it could be, but we've had some fast games against our opponents in this play session, so I'll try this one. Can't go for a turn 2 Risen Reef actually, because this comes in tapped, of course. Ugh. And our opponent has a Mana Crypt, unfortunately. Into Mana Vault serves us right. Into a Moxen, so yeah, we want counter magic for the Breya really. But there's a turn 2 Ugin. We draw into the Eternal Wanderer, so we can play the Underground Sea. This has to be the one that's enchanted with the Utopia Sprawl. They've got, yeah, probably not enough mana for their Breya next turn, so we'll go Utopia Sprawl onto this. Wow, and our opponent's got an absolutely stacked hand here, a Vamp Tutor during the upkeep. And they decide to make another Spirit Token. They can destroy, yeah, it's any permanent with this that has a colour of 1 or more, so could get rid of the Utopia Sprawl, decided not to, clearly. Ah, and there's an Armageddon, so, well, I'm glad the game ended that quickly because our opponent got off to a lightning fast start, and yeah, I think we're fine to concede there. Up against Joda again, and that is a 4-lander. We can get into some ramp with the seal, so we'll keep it. Alright, there's a Polluted Delta, so drop the Urborg, I think is fine. We'll get a dual land with the Polluted Delta. I don't think black's really going to help my opponent from the Urborg, but yeah, we'll do this anyway. Bayou, Imperial Seal, and we'll go for the Age-Old Mana Vault again, because we've got plenty of lands to make between now and then. Okay, our opponent just plays a tap land as well, so I think we're safe to do that. Can probably next turn go for Snap Mage into the Imperial Seal again. Another tap land from our opponent with the Terramorphic Expanse. So we're grateful for our opponent going slow here. Alright, Heroic Intervention, so maybe we can get down the Mana Vault. Ready for next turn. Let's get down another Triome with the Windswept Heath. Or actually, we'll need 2 mana held up, won't we, for the Heroic Intervention, just in case they go for blowing up the Mana Vault. So in that case, it can just be a Tundra, play the Mana Vault, and we're looking for our commander next turn, assuming they don't counter this. Okay, they do go for the counter. That is a Counter Squall. 5 cards left in their hand. So Snap Mage onto the Imperial Seal to get some more fast mana is probably the thing to do. Seeing an Unscythe, Killer of Kings, 4 cards left in our opponent's hand now. And it would have been our commander, but yeah, our opponent obviously countered us there. Delvin's Veto, I imagine we just see our opponent's commander next turn, so don't know if I want to hold up Delvin's Veto. Let's instead go for the Snap Mage. Obviously allows us to recast the Imperial Seal, so putting a card on top of our library. So if we go for the Mana Vault here, or Mana Crypt even, we go for Mana Crypt, draw into it next turn, we can play that, and that will allow us into the Atraxa after the land drop. So yeah, going a bit slower this game of course, but we had a lot of lands in our opening hand and that's helped us here. And we should be able to land the Mana Crypt because we've got Dovin's Veto back up, so even if we have to play that, it'll keep the Mana Crypt in hand or in play ready for the Atraxa on the next turn. So we draw into the Mana Crypt, try and slam that down first. And that lands, so it is an Urborg, fix all our opponent's black mana. And we, of course, going for our commander here. And it is an ETB, so we don't get a cast trigger, but it does enter, thankfully, so going to get some nice card advantage here. Don't think I've ever taken any less than 4 cards with Atraxa. Alright, so there is... yeah, Toxic Deluge is probably a good idea to take over the Sky Shroud Claim. We'll take the Utopia Sprawl. Baleful Strix can be an artifact or a creature, but it's the only one of either. Beast Within, and then as it stands now, we can hold up Dovin's Veto, Heroic Intervention, and play the Teleportation Circle next turn, so I think we're fine to get down a tap land in Field of the Dead. And yeah, need to start actually counting out the number of cards I'm going to take, because we're going to have to discard down to hand size here. Just throw away the Utopia Sprawl. Our opponent's colours are fixed thanks to the World Tree. Might blow that up with the Beast Within. And there we see Jace, Unraveller of Secrets, so they could bounce the Atraxa. And that's exactly what they decide to do. So now the plan is probably Beast Within onto this, and then Toxic Deluge. Okay, drawing into a Sol Ring as well, so definitely get down the Sol Ring. And any land we make after the Field of the Dead is going to trigger, because we'll have 7 lands in play after that. So Beast Within blows up the Jace, hopefully, leaving them with a Beast token, and then we want to make sure that we hold up the Dovin's Veto just in case. So it's Toxic Deluge for 3, gets rid of their commander and the Beast that we just made. And that triggers the Unscythe. And this is whenever a creature dealt damage by the equipped creature this turn dies, you may exile that card and create a zombie token. Right, so this is bugged. Our opponent shouldn't be playing this if it's bugged, although maybe he doesn't know. Yeah, obviously the Unscythe doesn't, or it didn't deal any damage last turn. So, yeah, I'm not sure what they even exiled. It was probably our... yeah, it must have been our Snap Mage. Anyway, we'll just play against our opponent's bugged spells. The Unscythe being equipped to the zombie, which has come down as a land for some reason, so it's definitely bugged. And then we see Elspeth Knight Errant, which can eat a Dovin's Veto. It seems as though we're clearly up against Super Friends here. Taking 5 damage to that thing though, which shouldn't even exist. We go down to 18, there's a Generous Gift. We should be able to make a land this turn because we're going in for the Atraxa. Want to make sure to hold up double blue, because if we can hold up double blue, that is. Yeah, I'm not sure we'll be able to actually. Would be good to hold up double blue so that we can go for some kind of counter magic. Yeah, so we've got blue off the Rafine's Tower. We need to try and grab a land that can make blue, if we get into a counterspell at all, that is. Alright, so there is the counterspell, and there is an Underground Sea. Command Tower's better actually, so we'll take that. Take counterspell, take the Lightning Greaves, even though we're not going to be playing it this turn. Cyclonic Rift, probably good against the Planeswalkers. Nature's Law can be the sorcery, and the creature can be Muldrifter. How many spells do we have there? We've got 4, 5, 6, 7 and 8 we'll have in hand, so just leave the Nature's Law alone here. I'm learning. Oh, and then I must have misclicked there. Oh my god, that's so annoying. I must have misclicked because we didn't get the card advantage. Oh well, we're fighting an uphill battle here against my opponent apparently. We've got Heroic Intervention, but should have had a lot of spells in our hand there. And there's the Austere command, so that's enchantments and our creatures. So here's Heroic Intervention. We don't have green mana. Alright, they've gone for enchantments. They should have gone for... yeah, you would have thought they'd go for artifacts there, but clearly don't want to lose their Unscythe. Well, Atraxa goes down. We're not doing too well here. So taking another hit for 5 from the zombie equipment. Bolted by the Mana Crypt as well. Yep. Okay, there's a Bloodstained Mire we can start chumping with at least. This has first strike, yeah, no trample. So get out the Bloodstained Mire, triggers the Field of the Dead, and we can afford our commander and still hold up the Heroic Intervention. We'll definitely make sure to hold up green mana this time. Obviously the blue mana we held up would have worked fine if it wasn't for the fact that we didn't actually get into the cards we needed. I must have misclicked there. I'm hoping that it's not the client going goofy. So we'll try again. Atraxa into play once more. And there we definitely take a Fierce Guardianship, I think. Oko is the only Planeswalker. Wood Elves is the only creature. Vamp Tutor the only instant. Farewell is the only sorcery. Take a Misty Rainforest. So we're on 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 and 9 spells. So let's get rid of Wood Elves. And I think getting rid of the Farewell is fine. And then I'll carefully hover over done and click that. And is it going to work? Okay, yeah, so I must have misclicked previously. Crack the Bloodstained Mire for another zombie. That can be Underground Sea. Going to play the Baleful Strix this time because we've got the free counterspell in Fierce Guardianship. Enters play and draws us a card. That is a Wild Growth for some more ramp. Obviously I've spread the ramp over sorceries and enchantments so that we've got more means of grabbing things with the Atraxa. Slayer's Plate from our opponent. And then equipping that to this thing. So that'll be +4, +2. And that makes a 9/7 with First Strike. So no point blocking with the Death Toucher here. We could make use of it with the Teleportation Circle at some point. And the Death Touch doesn't work against a First Striker. Yeah, the Austere Command here, look, it's gone all goofy. That's not what the card should look like, obviously. That's what it looks like when it's on the stack, so... yeah, the client is being weird here. Anyway, that is when the Unscythe should work, because a creature dealt damage died, but it didn't. So this thing's bugged, because they should have had a zombie token from the Unscythe there, thanks to our creature dying. Anyway, whatever, doesn't matter. We lose the Mana Crypt flip and get dangerously close. There is the Muldrifter that we should have had previously. So... we'll go for the Wild Growth onto the Breeding Pool, because that's free. I suppose I could have grabbed a basic with the Misty Rainforest, might have been a bit safer. Play out the Misty Rainforest. This will trigger the Field of the Dead a couple of times. And then we can go for the Teleportation Circle finally. Should have had it in a long time ago, but we can really start cherry picking cards for our hand here. That makes Simic, so we can use it to get down Oko. The Oko can tick up, get rid of Unscythe, so that takes First Strike away from them and makes them think twice about swinging into the Death Toucher here. We will go through to combat and quickly gain some life. And then we're looking at Teleportation Circle is going to flicker our commander. Comes back into play and triggers again because that's an ETB. And we grab a land in the Arid Mesa. The enchantment can be Darksteel Mutation. We've got Ephemera as well, and we'll grab Eternal Wanderer. So that puts us on 4, 5, 6, 7 and 8. Yeah, let's just lose the Darksteel Mutation, we don't need that. And then we press done, and that works. Alright, and that's enough to have our opponent scoop, so another couple of attacks with this. If they're not going to get into removal for it, then we've got a couple of answers for any targeted removal in Fierce Guardianship and the Ephemera anyway. And just been kicked out into the lobby, so can't see what we were going to draw into, but yeah, really clunky one in the end there, but it did make the game last a bit longer at least. Hopefully you're all enjoying these Atraxa Grand Unifier videos. I'm very much enjoying playing it, it's really fun, Commander. Please consider donating on Patreon via the link in the description below if you want to support me monetarily for all the time and effort that goes into these videos. Huge thank you to the very few of you who do that already. I'm tribalkai. Thank you for watching.